Welcome to another episode of Resortera Wave. It's been a minute, how they say. It's a pleasure to see Oscar again over there in Massachusetts. Over here, Nayib, and from I'm in New Jersey right now, in Newark, to be. And I just wanted to make a podcast. I wanted to sort of look at what has been going on since we did the last one, which was right after the defeat against the U.S. Doom and gloom, all out. I think that was pretty much what we showcased in that episode. And now all of a sudden, I'm not going to say that a lot has changed since then. Of course, there's a new manager, Jimmy Lozano. But when you look at what has happened almost a year later since, the World Cup was played, there's some good notes, no? Some good individual performances going on in an international level, but also with the national team. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what we have liked, what we hope that it can improve, if maybe there's some chance of improvement. And then we'll delve a little bit more in what's going on, in the next year or so with the Copa America that will be played in the U.S. Oscar, your thoughts on, these last months that we haven't been doing this?
Yeah. I know it's kind of it kind of feels like we ghosted the audience, but the good thing is for us, we're kind of always in contact, thankfully, because of this age of social media and like just to be able to be connected. But we've been kind of seeing, the Jimmy ride since the Gold Cup, going back to that part. But I think we've been around the block. Nothing too that, like you said, that brings out. Has Jimmy established his style? Probably not yet, but it's a new era, to say the least. But I'm excited, just like I always am.
The new era. It's a new era, like you said. I think that what I feel, based on what I've seen in the last months, is this idea that there's certain players right now with Jimmy that could have easily been in the last World Cup. And if I can give one example right away, is Chiquito Sanchez. Is Chiquito, what he's offering now, could have easily offered last year. I mean, there's not a big-ass difference between Chiquito from last year and the Chiquito now that scored a goal against Germany, a header of all. I was at the game, and when I saw that goal go in, that was the strangest thing ever. One of the strangest plays I've ever seen in my life. The smallest dude on the field basically goes in the middle. Rudiger was there and stuff, and he managed to score that goal. So I mean, those are the notes that Johan Vazquez, he could have been part of that team also with Tata Martino, and now with Jimmy we see him repeated. Also the supporting cast around Edson Alvarez. I think it's more pronounced with Jimmy, but it could have easily been implemented last year too, because the same players are still available, and I think the one that a lot of people have been talking about is Santi Jimenez. Santi Jimenez didn't go to the last World Cup, but I think Santi still, he has too much in his head, especially when he plays for the national team. There's a lot of pressure. You don't see the same Santi you see at Feyenoord and the one that is in the national team. It's like two different Santis. And I think it has to do a little bit with the style of play, but it also has to do a lot with stuff that is in his head. No, I think in that game against Germany, he had one opportunity that, he puts that in with Feyenoord. And with El Tri, for some reason, the goal becomes smaller and smaller. It shrinks. So, I mean, I think those are quick observations from my end of the current situation with El Tri right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the first things I mentioned. Forget about the quality of Chiquito. I just think he has personality, right? He has character. Something that you don't see from even. I mean, going back to a little bit to like players that should have been at the World Cup, but I understand why Tata had those players, because just like Jimmy, those are his guys. Just like it's no surprise a lot of the people he's been calling up are people from the Olympic squad, right? That was the same thing with Tata, who had that Gold Cup run, championship team. he was gonna be loyal to them no matter what. Same thing with Jimmy in this case. Although now we're starting to see, all right, that I can see that that's gonna cause me trouble. If I continue this, that's why certain players like Charlie has dropped. But then again, someone like Antuna, who he loves, has worked out. But bringing in someone like a Chiquito Sanchez, even to be honest, Naive, I know he's not everyone's favorite, but I think Romo and Edson together
Yeah.
looked really, really good, especially against Germany. You saw it just kind of like I don't know, just a certain foundation and less responsibility for Edson because we know you put him in there alone, he's okay in certain situations. But a game like that, I mentioned to you, I think if he had slotted in at center back, maybe booted Johan out of the starting lineup or push him left back and put Montes and Edson as the two pairs. But that's it's more tactical in my
Yeah.
opinion to what we're doing. But I'm liking what I see with Jimmy too. He's not afraid to put the youngsters in there, and he's not afraid to be reserved. I think we saw that against Germany. You said that too, like the first, 25, 27 minutes, like almost half an hour. We didn't sit back, but we didn't try to dictate the game. And I think if we even go back to 2018, that's what we kind of did too with Juan Carlos Osorio. Although I think because of the World Cup and the status of that game, I think it looked a little bit prettier versus in Philly, it was just a friendly.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring a good point up. Is that whole idea of sitting back, no, and you know how sitting back looked against Argentina last year, and how sitting back against Germany looked this year. You know, with technically
That's perfect example.
with the same players. No, there's not a big ass difference between what's available now and what was available with Tata. You know, one of the things that you brought up and I brought up when the Argentina game happened is you don't play Edson. Like, why? You know, that's the player that you want to play in that situation because he's capable to move back as a center back and, you know, slot himself in the midfield, you know, according to what the situation on the field asked for. But also, you know, I don't know how much the influence of the change to the Premier League has influenced Edson's game. You know, I think he plays with more confidence now, knowing that he's in the best league in the world, no, and he's playing, no, he's getting minutes, and it hasn't been easy, no. It looks like he gets tired quickly, no, doesn't end the 90 minutes, and I think that's part of the transition that he's going through. But you can see that in his game now that perhaps wasn't there last year. You know, the interpretation and the confidence, you know, to go head to head against like a Ghana or a Germany. But I think one of the things that I appreciate right now with Jimmy is that he keeps the same block. You know, the block stays the same. You know, there might be one or three changes at most, but he's been doing the same thing since the Gold Cup. I mean, there's not that much transition of formations and lineups, and I think that can be helpful in the next months. You know, I think right now with what he's gonna do with Julian Quiñones when he's added into this group is how he's gonna play. No, because I do sense that there needs to be some type of formation change, you know, to satisfy or exploit the best out of Julian. You know, in a perfect world, in my opinion, is Julian and Santi up top, with Chucky on one of the wings and maybe Antuna on the other one, and then you play with Edson and Chavez maybe, no, or depending also because I think the game is gonna be against Honduras, no, which it doesn't really demand you that much. You know, it doesn't demand you to have Romo and Edson, for
A
example.
double pivot, yeah.
Yeah, so you can play around with that. But it will be interesting to see. I mean, I just think that the difference right now with Jimmy is the consistency with the formation, the consistency with the lineup, and he's very, very, very selective on who goes in and who goes out. You know, I think, like you said, Charlie not being part of this team anymore says a lot. I mean, he's just not been that type of player in the last year and a half.
And despite the relationship they might have had and success they've had together, he was willingly more enough to know to be like Chiquito is just too much right now to drop, and he kind of not only take over Charlie's spot, but he kind of took over. I think he's gonna pretty much take over Achacha's spot, right? Probably in that midfield.
Yeah. That's a good point you bring up because Achache was brought up again into the picture after the Gold Cup, and I didn't see that much. I saw a lack of speed of play, precision.
He'll be a squad player at best, I think, which I think is not bad to have some type of
if he
experience.
agrees, if he wants to be that, let it be. But I don't see Achach as a starter. Even if Achach and Dynamo go on to win the MLS Cup in the next weeks or so. I mean, I just don't see it. He cuts the dynamic of play that Jimmy wants to implement, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so too. And then I'll be interested what Jimmy does do. I mean, thankfully for him, or maybe not thankfully for him, he's not gonna have to deal with World Cup qualifiers and World Cup qualifiers specifically at the Azteca, and then just important games in the Azteca in general. Just like how the qualification right now it is going to be for Copa America. And just kind of going back what you said, it'd be interesting what he does tactically. Like you said, I don't think you should do like a double pivot of Romo and Edson. I really think in games like that, you got to play, especially at home, especially with the way how the national team has played at home the last few World Cup cycles. I think you just got to go all out right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Kind of like how the issue is, at least from what I was seeing, looking back at the previous cycles, it takes about 75, 65 minutes until, okay, let's put everyone in, like let's go all out attack at that minute. I do that from the beginning.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. I put in Julian Santi, Chucky Antuna, and I probably even put a more attacking fullback than whatever we usually put at the fullbacks right now. Like even like a natural wing, like even a Tecatito at right wing back if he gets back into form.
Or even Julian. Technically, Julian is more offensive maybe than Jorge, or vice versa. I mean,
or even to be honest, since because Antuna works for the national team, I probably put him at right wing back. Y luego también someone who's direct, who can give crosses into Santi and Julian at the left wing back, because if we keep that back line of three where Edson tucks in, I really don't see like in Honduras or Panama, or in this case, because it'll just be Honduras that they're going to dictate the game, because they're just going to want to sit back and get a result the Azteca. They're going to do the same thing in Honduras.
It's similar to what Pep does with Rodri, no? And what because Rodri is a central defensive midfielder, but he really tucks well in with the center backs, and when a team, usually is the case, so the team that plays against Man City sits back, you got to find solutions, no? And that's what he usually does. The way he plugs in Clark, no? And how he plays, that's Clark, ¿verdad? The youngster, the English.
No, no, Clark. Sí, a poco sí is. I forget his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Lewis,
So,
no, Lewis.
¿Ya ves? Ahí está. No más que yo, Clark and Lewis, I don't know why, pero one of those two was. But that's the type of player as well, no? The guy that can play on the wing, but also in the midfield. I think Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy knows that stuff, and I think if he gets in the head,
how many cycles have we seen, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, but this guy has been traveling to Europe, no? He goes to visit so and so manager, and
plus he's lifted too. This is why the good aspect of being Mexican as well. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I hope that what you just said. I mean, I do think that the game against Honduras and Azteca next month, it's probably the last Azteca game. Supposedly that's the last Azteca game until the World Cup. Mexico won't play there until the World Cup in 2026 because they gotta renovate it and whatnot. And I think it will be nice for the team to leave a good, ¿cómo se dice? Sabor de boca, no? For the fan base. I don't know how many people will go to the stadium, probably 50,000 or less. But those that go, yeah, I think it's a good opportunity, like you said, to be explosive. I mean, like you said, you play with three center backs in the back, with the wing backs that can be Antuna, and then another one on the left. Could be Chino Huerta, I don't know, something, just putting ideas out there.
Something direct that's going to allow the attack to expand and really use the width of the field versus
And feed Santi Jimenez.
just
No,
feed them, suffocate them, because otherwise, I mean, we've seen games that are on the land, the Azteca at home, just how it's not because of the national team for the most part at fault, but it's the opponent. When you've seen that low block, right? It's like damn near park the bus. So when the low block is that much, you really need to move that ball around, use that width, play those balls in between. You need that speed, really expand I mean, you brought up City. City is a perfect example how they really use the width. Even Arsenal right now is really good with that too. You got Liverpool also, I feel like, is also very good. But
yeah.
I do think you have to do that at the Azteca, because otherwise, I mean, you've seen it. How much is like side to side? How much is it the players like, what do I do now? Just because the team is just so
and it's interesting right now because when we're doing all this analysis and bringing up names, one that we don't bring up is Orbelín Pineda. And look, Orbelín Pineda has had many minutes with Jimmy Lozano, even in the World Cup, and then if we include these friendlies, but he hasn't been convincing. I mean, I don't know what his role is. Like his role gets lost, or his play style. Is he a double pivot? What in my opinion, when he puts Orbelín in the position that Chiquito played multiple times in the last week, Chiquito was way better. No, I don't know what it is, if it's confidence or what he offers, but that's gonna be an interesting case to see how he manages Orbelín Pineda, no? Because he does look like a player that Jimmy likes a lot, because experience, multiple
still in his
championships.
prime, basically. Yeah.
Is still in his prime, like you said, and I think, but I don't see the same flow, no, that we saw with Chiquito Sanchez. I mean, I think Chiquito Sanchez hit all cylinders and really put in trouble the starting roles of Orbelín Pineda, Héctor Herrera, and so forth, no. Antuna made a big case, definitely this month, and
He's
with
always has, even with that, to be fair.
yeah, but when it mattered in the World Cup, I didn't see this Antuna. Just didn't see it, and then that's the thing with Antuna. He's been good in World Cups. He's been good in friendlies. I mean, I think he has this crazy stat of like being the most goals and assists in the last 3 years, I believe. And props to him. The big test for Antuna will be the Copa America. What Antuna are we gonna see in the Copa America? Because if he keeps playing the way he's playing right now with the national team, the starting position is his. Especially considering the situation with Vega, that I don't think he's going to be back in the picture unless, he signs with another club and starts banging goals that, you can't ignore him. But at the moment, it's Antuna, no? Piojo Alvarado also, who was in a big favorite of Tata's. Now I think he might get another influence. So I think Jimmy has a variety of options. No, even we haven't even talked about Cordova and how he has done, and especially in the Liguilla, because the regular season he's been ups and downs. It hasn't been that consistent. But that Liguilla he did last year was just impeccable. Not last year, no, it was this year.
Yeah, just the past tournament. Yeah,
the past tournament. So I think those are notes to keep in mind, especially as he works his magic. No, I think El Tri plays in November, and they also play in December against Colombia in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. See, this is for me. This is why I feel like also why I don't like criticizing. I don't know about the word criticizing, but just approaching national team level versus club level is it's just so different how you have to approach it tactically. Because if you go this way, then they're gonna say, "Oh, why aren't you more consistent? If you change too much, why don't you pick a starting 11?" Perfect example was literally last 2 cycles. But Tata, why do you have the same people? Osorio, why do you change everything all the time? Jimmy needs to find that right balance of, okay, who are the guys who are my guys. You know, I love them, and you know, I just trust them, and no one's gonna change my mind. But who do I bring in who are gonna make a difference? Case in point, Chiquito Sanchez. Case in point, maybe Julian Quinones, maybe Santi, because he's technically, I think he does favor Raul over him at the moment, or even Henry Martin. Just because he was injured, I do think he'd be getting a lot more playing time if he wasn't injured with
Yeah.
Henry Martin.
No, and then also, what was gonna say right now? Um, this idea of favoritism, uh, what not favoritism, but the equilibrium of being able to change the lineup or keep the same lineup. I mean, and si sigue ganando, if he keeps getting good results like he did this month, he can do whatever he wants. I think that's gonna be the key. The key is getting the wins and convincing performances, and I think that will give him permission to sort of, okay, I want to play this, I want to check this out, or I want to see this player. Um, but if the results, especially in the Copa America, if the results are not so positive, that's where it gets troubling a little bit, especially with switching up the lineups and everything.
Yep, I think that's at that point he's just gonna have to stick with a certain group of players, whether it's the first 11, maybe the 15-ish, the guys you bring on. Other than that, you can't change it. I feel like unless something like drastic happens, something that comes to mind like special situations is France this past World Cup where Deschamps made three changes at a halftime based
Yeah.
on the way the game was going. If something like that is just so one sided and it's not gonna change, you make the change. I think that's only times where Jimmy will be able to need to experiment and risk it a little bit more. Otherwise, I do think it's time. Just the way the national team level timeline is, it's very finite. You know what I mean? You just need to pick just a certain group of players and hoping they deliver and pick the right ones.
Yeah, that's the thing with Jimmy, no, especially in the last, his first part of his tenure is knowing who to substitute, no, and who to put in, especially when the results not going or the game's not going in the
Which has
direction that he
worked
wants.
well, thinking about it now.
Yeah, they've worked well, the changes. I mean, he did them in the Gold Cup. Then in, I think, the friendly against Australia and Uzbekistan, I think the changes, it was mainly Cortizo and Chino Huerta that did a lot of work, noticeable work. Um, and I think in this one there was some changes, but I think overall he tried to nail the starting 11, no, of a concrete starting 11 with these two games, considering the how important the opponents were. Very, very respectful. It's Germany at the end of the day, even if they came all the way from Europe. And in Philly, the problem in Philly, I think, with Germany is that they arrived late to the stadium because there was a lot of traffic in the city. There was a Phillies game.
I was gonna say, yeah, I heard there was a Phillies game
There
and
was a
that.
Phillies game, and then there was a Flyers game in the Wells Fargo Center. So in that area in South Philly, there was like, I want to say 120,000 people just conglomerated there for 3 games. Um, I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of Mexicans that were there on a Tuesday night. And it was chilly. I mean, it was like at least 50 degrees, 55 degrees. But there wasn't only Mexicans in that stadium. There was a lot of Salvadorians, Guatemalans, Colombians, Puerto Ricans. And also Germans. There was a big German presence in one of the ends of the goal. But it was very, very interesting to see. Just seeing El Tri compete, against Nagelsmann's Germany. And Germany will probably still be a main actor in the Euros. No, so it's not because a lot of people are saying, well, that Germany's coming out of turmoil. They got whooped by Japan last month, right? I think it was. So there was a lot of questioning about that, but at the end of the day, look how Germany defeated the U.S. No, and it was in Hartford, Connecticut, I believe the game was. And El Tri, 2-2, but there was a lot of instances where El Tri really had the opportunity to take the win.
No, I completely agree. I think it's one of those things too. I think Germany have earned their right where like the same way like Brazil is Brazil, same thing with Germany is Germany. Like it doesn't matter what phase they're in beating, a state-of-the-art coach, which is Nagelsmann, and Jimmy kind of really tactically really on par, not on par, but similar wavelengths to like to the point where we weren't getting blown out. I mean, you saw with the U.S. men's national team, they got completely tactically blown out just because, in my opinion, the U.S. coach is, I don't know how he's at that level of a coach,
Yeah.
but fair play to him, I guess. And it's better for us to be honest because if U.S. has the potential really to get anyone they really wanted if they really wanted to, but that's another discussion. But you really see, I guess, the positive in that, like when you compare the team that we haven't been able to beat the last like three important games in the last three important games we haven't been able to beat them. But yeah, I think it's looking good though.
Yeah, no, and we'll see. I mean, a lot will depend on how these players do in their clubs. I think that's going to be critical. As we're recording this, Ochoa was already benched by Inzaghi and Salernitana. I think that could change a little bit with Jimmy Lozano. It looks like Jimmy wants Ochoa to be the starter no matter what. Played him against Ghana, played him against Germany. He is the guy of the leader. No, he's been there, done it, been there forever. So Jimmy's relying on Ochoa for that experience, for that leadership. But if he doesn't play in Italy from now, I don't know to
Until the
when,
Copa America, let's just say.
it's troubling, no, and it's gonna put a little bit of an asterisk if he continues to put him as starter, considering if he doesn't play at the club level. But we'll see. I mean, Ochoa has done many things. Inzaghi said that you know he's barely coming back from these two games. It was a long trip, and I think there'll be more time to observe him. But I think that's going to be an issue. It's looking like Montes will be relegated again. Had the experience with Espanyol. Now it's Almeria. Um, Almeria looks bad. I mean, I saw the game this weekend. I think it was against Granada, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, and then they were easily dismantled. So I mean, it's not looking good for him. Johan Vasquez with Genoa. We'll see how it keeps going. I mean, on the
It's
one
going to
hand,
be a relegation battle for all these
it's
guys.
probably going to relegation, but with Johan, he's speaking Italian, yo. That's pretty special. I saw that interview on Twitter the other day. I was like, damn, that's pretty good.
Hmm.
And so those little things help. It gives you confidence, it boosts your morale. You come with a different attitude to the national team. We're like, you're playing in Serie A, you're adopting the culture in Italy and learning the language. I think that says a lot about the player. And we'll see what Santi Jimenez. I mean, there's rumors of him moving in the winter. I don't know if that's true. I think it will be best not to move. Just finish the season with Feyenoord and see what happens in the summer. Especially if he keeps this track record. I mean, because it looks like he might beat the record of top goal scorer in the Netherlands. Like the biggest record. I think more than 50 goals or something. So if he's on the path of breaking that, I mean, that'll be great for him. It will definitely boost the price tag of his transfer fee. And I think those are the sort of the things, There's rumors about Chiquito moving to Feyenoord. That's one of the rumors I read this week. So that would be good, if he's able to move to a team, and even if Feyenoord doesn't make it out of the Champions League group, they could possibly stay in the Europa League. So if Chiquito moves next year, in January, he'll probably play Europa League. So that's still good.
Hmm.
So I mean, all those little details are things to keep an eye on, and the Chucky return to PSV, I think, is still, I don't know if it's murky or whatnot, but I'm not so sure how that's going to turn out, if it's going to be a good move or a bad move.
They have a lot of players. That's the thing.
That's a big. I just see so many options. It's like, when is he gonna play? Or, I mean, how? And also, I mean, the coach is not like giving him the starting role just because he used to be a club favorite. No, I think Chucky will need to win the starting role with actions now. He can't live from the past, and I think that's gonna be big for him to see where he's at and if he's willing to put in the work. No, because he's coming back from Napoli. He thinks that everything's gonna be served on the table in PSV, and it's looking like it's not gonna be served on the table.
Yeah.
He has to win it.
To be fair, though, I think hopefully I'm not wrong. I think he's up to it because you saw with the Germany game, I thought he looked really good. Now.
Yeah, he looked pretty good.
And if I'm not mistaken, he was involved in both of the goals.
He was involved in the first goal, and the second goal was Antuna with the cross.
Antuna, yes.
Yeah.
But he was active. My point was more than anything, he was active. He was causing them problems. And I just think he looked really good. Hopefully that can...
That's the Chucky we want to see, no? The Chucky that is persistent, that is a team player. There was one decision from Chucky that he could have passed the ball to Antuna. I think it was in the second half that Chucky decided to take the ball out by himself and shoot on goal. And I think Antuna was wide open. So those are the things where I still see that Chucky is sometimes he wants to, of course, he wants to be the hero. He wants to score. But if he's able to just focus and put the ball to the person that's open, better things will happen. And I think he's on the right path, though. I think we saw a lot of improvements in this window compared to what we have seen in the past.
Definitely. Especially coming off Napoli, which on paper, I mean, he's kind of already a legend, to be honest. When it's all said and done in Europe, there's not gonna be no asterisk like he didn't play any type of role. But to be a Mexican and win Serie A with Napoli, like post Diego Maradona, that's gonna be nuts. That's up there with, to be honest, that's up there with Chicharito probably in his time at Manchester in terms of like the trophies he was able to win, because he was coming off the bench too, even though he had a really good first season.
No, I think the thing with Chucky, I mean, he's well loved. I mean, everyone loves him. I mean, there's not a game that you go where the Chucky Lozano chant doesn't show up. I mean, it always shows up. So I think, and he knows it. He knows it. He's well aware of it. So I think he continues to be an important player for Jimmy Lozano, and then hopefully it can translate into goals and assists, similar to what Antuna has been doing. I think that's what we want to see more from Chucky, because he's shown it before and he can do it. But we'll see these upcoming weeks with the games. And like I said, the Honduras game is a great opportunity to sort of be explosive in Estadio Azteca, see what works, what doesn't work. Hopefully Santi Jimenez can get a couple of goals, I think, for his confidence in the national team, because I think that's important. I mean, that will change the chip a little bit, I'd say. Once he puts one in, especially the goal that he scored in the Gold Cup final against Panama, I think that is the Santi that we want to see, the one that takes on and scores those really nice goals.
No, I'd just be excited just to get, because really the last striker we had that brought their club level to the national team level was Chicharito, probably back with Man U, right? Because even though Raul had that amazing season where he got like 17 goals in the Premier League, right? I think that season was the COVID time, or even then when he was getting called up, that Wolves form never got translated to the national team, and he was playing at a higher league than Santi.
And then
probably in a harder circumstance as well.
Massive injury he had as well. I mean, that really derailed a lot of things. And also, when the Chepo era, when El Tri almost didn't make it to the World Cup, Chicharito
that's when he was up too.
Yeah, he couldn't score.
He did good at the beginning, and then the qualifiers is where, to be fair, it wasn't just him. It was just kind of like...
Yeah, but the only dude that was scoring goals was Oribe Peralta, no? And of course, Oribe, then goes. He did get minutes with Chepo, but then it blew up with Piojo. No, especially with the New Zealand playoff. That's where I don't know. I think he scored like 4 goals or something between the 2 games. So I mean that stuff helped Oribe Peralta. So I in my opinion, it's been tough, no, to have like like an informed striker for El Tri that manages to sort of have the same level at club level and national team level. And right now, Santi has an amazing club level. Let's hope that it moves to national team level. Let's see what happens with Quiñones, because Quiñones has I wouldn't say an impeccable club level, not so much right now, but he does have good numbers, no, at the club level. Let's see if that looks good in the national team level.
To defend them real quick, Nayib, though, all those strikers that we did have in amazing forms at one point, you got to look at the supporting cast. And when I think about it now, Oribe did thrive in a sense because we did have a lot of Liga MX players. And who does Oribe play with? Mostly Liga MX players. So I think the style too, because if you look at the Raul's Wolves, it was very much counter-attacking, similar to like what we saw with Juan Carlos Osorio in the Germany. And then when he tried to bring that over to CONCACAF, where we were the ones dictating the possession, that's not what they did at Wolves. You know what I mean? It was faster, quick pace, and then they had like quick wingers versus at the national team level we didn't have. Same thing with Feyenoord and Santi right now. So it is the supporting cast. I mean, we talked about this too with Guardado when he was playing more regularly in Betis. I mean, just look at the supporting cast that he has around him. He has Guido Rodriguez, a World Cup winner, and he had at one point the Portuguese who also won the Euro too. Versus, I mean, respectfully now, what did Guardado have? Ache, who was playing at the MLS in a given situation.
And Chavez,
Romo.
no? Or
And
Romo.
Chavez, which is not bad, but I think there's a little bit of a drop off. I think with the club level in some aspect, but that's for another day.
Yeah, let's hope Chavez keeps his good level. No, let's hope that he doesn't
The
drop it
Russian move
because
is worked out so far.
yeah, because I think right now if we're looking for the Copa America, I think he's a starter. I mean, I don't think unless depending on what type of style Jimmy wants to play. No, like I said, right now I think the 4 midfielders that have gotten a lot of minutes. It's Edson, um, Romo, Chiquito, Chavez, Orbelin, maybe up there with midfielders, forwards. No,
I think it
um,
is if you count the Gold Cup. You got a lot of minutes to be honest.
yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's good stuff from the Lamborjimmy. I think it looks like he's having. They say that he's still in the honeymoon stage. So I mean, it does look like the honeymoon stage. But I think more than that, what he's brought is just sort of like not too much drama going on right now. I think he's been very careful with that. He's really been elegant with the media, not really getting pissed off. But you never know what's gonna happen in the next months, no. But hopefully he can work. No, he has the whole support from the directores, no, and I think he won this position since he did that show, Los Maestros, that you liked so much during the World Cup. That's when Jimmy seriously became the Mexico, the considered, no, the future Mexican manager. He won it there. He exposed his thoughts about the game. He was that show. That show is historic. I mean, I think a lot of if this thing goes good, if this Lamborghini goes good, or like if this Proceso goes good, you always have to look back at those episodes because that's where he offers his vision of the game. He gets in debates with La Volpe about what's supposed to happen with Peláez, and who else was there.
If there's anything that the Federation or Televisa has learned, especially with the amount of power they have with the national team, is you
Javier
need
Aguirre
some type of consultation with football minds.
Yeah.
It's great to make money, and to be honest, the world runs on money, right? You can't have a national team without money. I mean, just look at teams in the Caribbean. They can't even sometimes afford flights for their friendlies or even going to the Gold Cup. And Mexico has a plethora of that, where we can send kids to South America, we can send kids to Europe, but let's try to combine it a little bit more, the sporting side as well,
No,
because
it's crazy.
you
It's
can win
crazy
on
what
both sides.
yeah, it's crazy what you said. I mean, this was a show made and produced by Televisa, and there's been a lot of criticism about what Televisa has done to the Mexican game. And they have their Club America. The president of the FMF right now is a former Televisa employee. But it's crazy to me that a lot of the stuff that's going on right now with the national team happened because of that show. And I think that show is like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm sort of like thinking out loud, but it does feel like that. There's a before and after that show.
It's perfect too, Nate, because not only did it get Mexican football experts, but you got outsiders who know Mexican football and gave their 2 cents, like Camaronesi. He's a World Cup winner, and the fact that he had, I thought, someone who is tactically coming into the league, like Lacamon right now with Leon, someone who's very modern in the modern game, also giving his 2 cents about the Mexican game. I mean, just all that,
yeah,
it's a recipe for success.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate the way that La Volpe kind of interpreted all this, because he was supposed to be in one of the consultants of
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden La Volpe goes out and says, I wasn't notified about this and whatnot. But he's a crazy man. What he did in that show, though, La Volpe, and being with Jimmy, that's enough information. If Jimmy was smart, you take all that information and you try to implement with what you have right now. And I think Jimmy has done it. Whatever advice La Volpe might have given him in that show was vital. No, it doesn't matter if he doesn't give him advice anymore now that all this happened about the malentendido, whatever it was. But I think that show has a lot to do with what El Tri is doing right now, because of the mindset. I think even Jimmy put a list, a convocatoria, a call up on a board one time and showcase, these are the players that I have in mind.
I remember that one. He were basically showed up like all the players disposable, like after a certain age, and you saw a lot of the Olympic team,
and a lot of them are right now.
A bunch of the young kids, yeah. I have to say, he did get some of them wrong, Naive, though. Go look at that list again.
Who's on that list? I don't know. I forgot about the list. I mean, well, look, Lainez, for example, Marcelo Flores, which we didn't even bring up on this show. But, who knows what's going to happen now? From now that they're in Tigres, who would have thought that Marcelo Flores was going to be in Tigres? But that's what's going on right now. But it's Mexican soccer, man. You never know what's going to happen the next day. So thank you, Oscar, for being on the show. Thank you for everyone that watches. I know it's been a long time. We're doing good. We're watching baseball. Well, not anymore for me, because that's just got eliminated yesterday.
I stopped in, I think, August for me. You were out.
Yeah, you were out right away, yo. At least we made the playoffs. And now we'll see. I mean, it's looking like it's going to be Phillies, Arizona against the Rangers. The Phillies and Arizona are playing as we record this, so I don't know what the score there is.
I gotta say, hope Philly wins it, just because their fan base in any sport is ridiculous. And
it's insane.
Turn that city upside down.
No, well, freaking El Tri almost turned upside down Philly. And the night that the Phillies were playing, I mean, it's insane. I don't get it. Like, I don't know how the heck, I think there was a lot of people from Jersey, a lot of people from South Jersey went to the game. A lot of people that live in Virginia and Maryland, in that area, people that live in New York, so it wasn't just in the Philly area. But damn, you're surprised, and it doesn't, ¿cómo se dice? Never ceases to amaze me. There's always something, So hopefully things work out for Jimmy, and we'll be back hopefully soon here in Resortera Way. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you. Take care, guys.